Have a really neat app that you can get for Android, iPhone, or iPad. They have it for basketball, football, lacrosse, softball, and everything else that goes with it. But it's searchable by the rules, so you can go to a rule. If I can hit it right. You can go to a rule, you can go to timeout, stopping play. Come on. And it'll give you the various rules. And then when you hit that, it'll actually give you a section. You can get related, you can follow it through, and if there are related sections, you hit that, and it'll take you to everything that's related to that particular rule. And then it's got casebook. So if you've got a case, the cases are how the rules need to be interpreted. And this was all of $5.95 on the iTunes store. And I've already used it at halftime of a varsity game saying, did we kick that call or did we get it right? And we go back in and we do a search real quick at halftime and yeah, we fucked that one up. Or no, we got that one right. Okay. So I mean, it's really handy, especially because it's searchable. And you can actually go up and hit search, type in words, hit search, and it will find every instance in the rule book that relates to that so that you can go and see how it works. So
well, we'll get that link also, and we'll get that up on our site. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Obviously, we're hopefully better. We got a little bit more knowledge on this. Give us 15 more minutes. Aaron's going to go through some game situations I think you'll really find helpful.
Yeah, I'll be quick. First of all, as far as with the referees, one thing I can tell you, I can give you my approach. I don't worry about it. I don't know as much as they do about it. If I question something, as long as I don't do it like an idiot, they'll usually respond back to me and clarify it. And not that you're always going to, it's an emotional situation, you're not going to always agree with it, but I wish, one thing, I just thought of an idea, in a high school game, I think that every time out, they should actually do a trivia question with these rules so parents can hear them, so they can slowly eliminate the people that scream that stuff, okay? And displacement, I hadn't ever heard about that for 2 years. And then I finally had guys, because we're not a very big team at Glenbard North, a lot of times, like Friday night we play a 7-footer. You know, when he jumps over, you see a little bit of contact, but the bottom line is he's 7 feet tall. The ball's borderline straight up in the air. You know, it's frustrating because you think your guy does things right. But there's a lot of things you can do coaching-wise to eliminate some of those things. One thing I can tell you is we stress, especially when a ref is nearby, I am always saying as the defensive guy, show your hands. Because refs look for hands. And as soon as you take away the push call, your players now stop reaching, and we say, get your hips away from the ball. Now your hips are away from the ball, you have to get in a stance. And you eliminate, usually getting beat off the dribble as much, and you eliminate a lot of the blocks. My biggest aggravation is the moving screens. It drives me nuts. Wheaton South, Coach Healy's not there anymore. He and I used to argue about it in the summer. He told me he is now going to teach, this is a couple years ago, moving screens on every possession because he knows they won't call all of them. And that's a true story. And if you go back and watch film on them 2 years ago, it's like they're a good football program for a reason. You know, so every one of them was like this, and they were moving, and I had to keep telling my guys, you have to make contact. It's not a moving screen until you make contact. If you make a 15-foot arc around him, and he could be moving all over the place. So as coaches, taking this information and explaining it to the kids is the big help. Tell your guy, make contact, not run him over. You know, we teach our guys to attack a shoulder and just sweep through. And then if he slides, it's up to the ref's decision. But there's only so much they're going to call. What I'm going to do is go through stuff and game preparation. And I'll tell you, I'll always go back to kind of what I've done. Failed at, done right, and use, and you guys can obviously relate it to what you want, or maybe other ideas that you have. Get the kid's mindset on something. I think the term vision is a great term to use. A lot of times kids are just running around warming up. Ask them before the game, what are you thinking? If they don't have a question for you, you already know they're heading in the wrong direction mentally of what's going on. And it doesn't have to be complicated, but right away you start talking to guys about what's your mindset, especially your guards, who you're going to play. If you know you're going to play a team that's going to press, mentally you already tell them, listen, you're going to face pressure, keep your composure, don't worry about certain things. Each individual player, you know your team better than I do, especially now you've gone through some tournaments, you get to know personalities and those types of things. My biggest thing, in my opinion, at your position, it's not a varsity game. We don't care about who plays. We don't care about parents. There's not a whole lot we really worry about. We worry about the game, and that's it. At your level, to me, it's about teaching. Everything is about teaching. Every moment is a teachable moment. That's my favorite saying is, a player comes off the court, if he is not given information on how to change how he's playing, you are not doing your job as a coach. You are the typical coach. I like to call them the typical coaches. They just scream and yell. They don't give any quality information. They don't give any support as to what they have to change, usually because it's out of frustration. And then, so there's no improvement that goes on with anything. So, and I can tell you maybe because it's more if I do some stuff from a business standpoint, I just assume every parent watches everything I do. So when I take your son out, you're probably already pissed I took your son out because you're a parent. And if I just take him out and just kind of treat him like he's just another object on the bench, now you're sitting there thinking, well, what's my guy getting at it? Okay? Your guy comes on, makes a turnover. First of all, I don't take guys out just because they make one mistake. And he comes out the court, I give him two things. I give him something, about what might have just happened, or something that's happening, or that's going to happen, to get him mentally what's going on, awake of what's the next thing that goes out there. If I have a player that's not good at taking information when he's frustrated, like our running back, Justin Jackson, he's our point guard, terrible when he's frustrated. We have an agreement. He sits next to me, I leave him alone for about 30 seconds. And once I kind of read his body language and what he's saying, I realize maybe he's ready to go. I usually leave that item alone, and I give him something to think about when he goes back in, about X's and O's, and it gets his mind right as to what he's going to do next. Okay? And that's a big deal. You have to. I don't care if it's 4th grade or 8th grade or varsity, it's the same thing. In-game decisions, playing time, high school, like I said, we really don't. We go 2 or 3 deep to start a game until injuries or foul trouble comes into play. But I think playing time is, in your position, one thing, if you got, what's your average roster? 9, 10?
10.
How many of you guys have 10? Okay, if you have 2 options. Obviously, you can sub 5 and 5, which I do in JV. I have a JV game tomorrow night. I'll have 10 guys. I split up my guards and my forwards. I sub 5 and 5 for the first half. Don't have to worry about it. Don't really care. I worry about winning the game in the 4th quarter as a JV coach. That's all I care about. I have a job to get my juniors ready for next year. I have seniors who are pouting because they don't play on Fridays, so I keep them playing so they feel like they're having fun and they're enjoying it. And then I figure it out in the 4th quarter. And if it's a game, then there. And you know what happens is someone usually gets in foul trouble. So if someone gets 2 fouls, they automatically come out of the game for the first half. So that helps. And then if I have someone significantly lazy, then I just take them out. And I just say, you just won't play. Now again, that's at the high school level. One thing you can do with the little guys is you just say, if you have 10, if you can press or play man-to-man, play as hard as you possibly can for those 3 or 4 minutes because you already know we're going to sub another 5 guys in. And you play a style to your roster. If you have 7 guys because 3 guys are sick, you probably don't want to pick up man-to-man full court and run like a maniac. You're going to get in foul trouble faster. It's a different game. So it's adjusting to your roster and who you have. Timeouts, I evaluate myself as a coach every night when I have a game, when we lose especially. When did I use my timeouts? Did I use them all? When did I use them? Did it work? We have a young team this year, extremely talented, but they're young. And when they're stupid for like a 4-minute window. When they're seniors, they're stupid for like a minute. It's just the way your team is. They'll do stupid things, okay? They're kids. Just like if we played right now, we would make some dumb passes. In your rules, when you go to a tournament, some tournaments you have an automatic timeout in the first half, right? Some people, if you haven't already done it yet, if you haven't had it, you will eventually. Right away, you tell yourself, I get a timeout for sure in the first half that does not carry over into the second half. No matter what you use it, you find a way to use it. Okay? And again, you as a coach, you might use that for end of the half. I use it as soon as I see the slightest inkling that we're not ready to play. I have used the varsity game, I've used a timeout in the first 30 seconds, and it's always a 30, because I don't want to go through the next 4 or 5 minutes of us really not looking at what's going on. I get us going, I stop it and change it right away, okay? Your team, if you have a team at the, I don't know what grade levels, can you press in 4th grade to start?
Last 2 minutes.
5th grade? 5th grade? Okay, so 5th grade and up.
I think 6 is when.
If you have a team that's not very good at starting out aggressively, I don't care who you play, press. It makes them aggressive right away. It gets them mentally thinking aggressive. We press West Aurora. People think we're nuts. We don't care. We're doing it for 30 seconds, a minute. And guess what? West Aurora, they're still high school kids. They'll still turn the ball over. Because other than Simeon and maybe Whitney Young in this state, they're still high school kids, okay? We lost to Proviso East last year, and they lost to Simeon in the state championship game. We pressed them. They were in shock. We got 4 turnovers. We never pressed them again after that, done. But we pressed, but we caught them a little bit off of a thing, and our guys came out with, you know, let's go. If this is it, we're going to go and we're going to play as hard as we can. Fouling, same thing. Teaching fouling. As a parent, what do you guys call when you want to foul? What do you yell?
Fire or yellow?
Fire, yellow.
Get the ball.
Pardon me?
I yell, get the ball.
Get the ball. Okay, so you have a term. It's funny because my freshman coach at our high school, who's been there longer than me, still screams foul like a maniac. It scares the hell out of me. It should be a term. It should be a word, like we use white. Now, how often have you practiced it in practice?
Not enough.
Well, raise your hand. Who's practiced? Hey, we got 2 guys out of our entire coaching group that haven't practiced it. Yet you can win games by stopping the clock quickly because you've taught it. Take 5 minutes. It's a situation in the game that now that you're through some of your season, it's a great time because it's something different. But what we teach, I know we probably shouldn't say this, but we teach hug the guy going for the ball. Because what happens is kids do the swipe, and they think they fouled him. One ref may not call it foul, and now the kid's dribbling for 7 seconds, and it's a scramble. So we literally teach go for the ball, but the chest is going to the center of the offensive guy. So we make sure, A, we might tip it and get lucky. If not, then it's like a hug for a split second. So we make sure we foul him. We teach them not to grab the uniform. We teach them not to punch, slap, all that stuff. And if a player does it in the game, no matter who it is, he comes out without hesitation because they're still kids. And if you haven't taught it to them yet, better be ready for something because they'll do something, especially the football guys. They'll literally make sure they get a good foul in there, and then you're going to be sitting there as a coach with emotions thinking, you know, what's this guy teach? It's going to come back on you as a coach.
Aaron?
Yes.
Joe doesn't know it, but I'm going to propose that the Titans use the ability to foul as one of the tryout parameters for 4th grade. We are notoriously bad at fouling.
At the end of a game, you mean?
Just in the game. We'll play a whole half and have 1 or 2 fouls.
He's saying we're soft. That's what he's saying.
Okay, well, I can give you
And we
feedback.
can't get them to foul.
I can give you
We've lost
feedback
games.
as a non-Titan coach. The reputation is that it is a very soft and slow-moving group. That's just getting, now I'm not saying that's true or not, because I don't agree that, I think every grade is different, okay? We're trying to eventually get a Glenbard North feeder group that started, but in reality, half the group is going to other schools. So I don't really call it even a feeder group. That's why I haven't really got involved with it, because I think it's, don't call it a feeder team and have half the kids going to Wheaton North or West Chicago.
But the point is, I think it's extremely important, the ability to foul at the right time.
Right, I think it's also, but it comes down to is what you're doing in practice. One thing you can do, if you're trying to teach more of a pressure, physical type of defensive style, do man-to-man drills, and the rule is you always have to have a hand on the hip of the guy you're guarding. So it's not a punching type thing, but it's just, you know, I'm going to have a hand on the guy's hip. That's what I'm going to, you know, if that makes sense. But teach it. You have to teach it. I mean, we teach it at the high school level, and you'd be amazed what you think guys already know. I had a kid, senior, dribble the ball. He got a rebound under the backboard, and he went like this, couldn't find anybody open, so he's like, oh, I'll just dribble right here and then turn. He just dribbled out of bounds. You know, over the back, inbounds play. He didn't think he could go get the ball. When the ball got thrown over his head, he just let it go. Guy went down and got a layup. Okay, again, he's a senior. That's why he doesn't play, but it's an assumption as a coach that everybody knows all these things. Adjustments. I think it should take a split second to make an adjustment. Ball screens. How do you guys defend ball screens? As a whole, anything, some guys switch, or a typical thing?
Try to get through, but you better not,
I'll tell you right
get
now,
caught
ball
up.
screens are a huge part of the game now. And they are becoming, almost every high school is doing a lot of ball screen stuff, because you get an athletic guard. We're going to ball screen Wheaton North. They have a 7-foot center. We have a Division I running back as our point guard. We're going to set a ball screen with the big guy's defender, and now it's my guard against your 7-footer out here at the volleyball line. So that's a big advantage for us. What we do is we call what's blitz. It's not a double team. My man sets a screen. I literally act like I'm blitzing him, like a defensive end going for the ball, while the defender runs behind him, and then I get back to my man. My suggestion for you is double it hard. Just literally run out and double every ball screen, because most coaches just stop running it because they see you're doubling the ball screen. Usually it still probably won't work all the time, but just coaches say, well, the play was designed to have a ball screen, and someone come off of this and pass it out, just right away. You see a team running it, and you find your players, and you say, hey, we're gonna, whatever term you use, or if you just flat out say it, we double all ball screens. Okay? But that especially can be very helpful.
So you're just, Aaron, you're doubling the dribbler?
Yeah, so I'm guarding the ball handler's coming off the screen. My man's screening.
Yep.
I'm running up. I'm doubling. Whoever's guarding the ball is doubling. You're leaving the screener basically alone. If he rolls to the basket, that is two things. It's very hard to make that pass, and it's very uncomfortable as a screener, because I set the screen, guy comes across, and I release. I'm now catching the ball, moving away from the hoop. Even when I catch it, I gotta turn and try to find something. That's very hard for a good player to do. That's why, Amari, Stoudemire, and all those guys are good at what they do, because that's a tough thing to make. And then you can switch them. Whatever term you use for switch, we use X. One simple thing is you can just add X, just say X ball screens. That way the play's done.
That's what Wes uses.
You're back to just right there,
That's a good point. That's what Jason and the freshman coach talk about, is Xing.
Right.
So it wouldn't hurt if everyone, or probably a good idea if we use the same.
Whatever
Are
you're
you doing
using.
every ball screen?
That's what
Go
they
to
call
Coach
it,
Motor
X.
and try to get as much of that terminology
switch. X.
on the same page as possible. And then the last thing, end of game situations. It'd be easier to show it if we had guys out here running around. I watched some guys in the tournament, how you manage your timeouts, how you ran your timeouts, how you communicated to refs. But end of game situations, always you're paying attention. You always know how many timeouts you have. If you're not sure, like I've done it so much, I think I usually don't need to be reminded. When in doubt, ask the table. Doesn't matter what your assistant has, the table is all that matters. And they don't want to waste their time arguing. It might be frustrating. I was given 2 timeouts once in a high school game that I never even had. I just like, okay, but more times than not, you got to check with that guy. The refs, a lot of times when you're down to your last one or you have none left, they will come and tell you, or they'll tell the assistant. The assistant has to make sure he tells them that. But I would think of it, you think of it as this. When you want to stop the clock by either A, calling your timeouts, or B, fouling. So if you look up, and we see this all the time, in a high school game, we're losing by 6 or 7, we have one team fouled, there's 3 minutes left, we will automatically call white 2 or 3 times just to get a little bit closer to bonus, so we know we can stop the situation if we need to get to the free throw line. Or we'll run a style of defense that's extremely aggressive. Maybe we get away with some fouls and create a steal and get away with that. Okay. And then last second shots. Here's what I've done. I've done a lot of really dumb things. I give the best guy the ball and get out of the way. That's as simple as it gets for a lot of situations, especially when you get to the junior high level, 6th grade level, 5th grade, 4th grade can be iffy, but I really, to be honest with you, we give the ball to our best guy, all 4 guys go flat on the baseline, and we just say, be a player. That's, and what I will do is we'll say pick out a spot on the wings or the elbows to get a shot off. because refs don't want to be the reason a game is decided, so they will be more likely to let something go physical-wise near the basket, especially if your guys are just throwing up a shot and they're not going up really with a very good angle or very good going up with much posture. But as far as running a play, other than, you can do some back screen stuff and all that, we don't really do a lot. One thing I could tell you that I think works a lot at the end of a game is a handoff play. Because you don't ever work on it defensively. Speaking of that, I'm a defensive guy, we have worked on it. But you always work a ball screen, you always work a back screen, you always work a regular screen, but how often do you work on a handoff play? So maybe you have a guard dribble down, you come behind him, there's that little bit of separation where maybe you get a shot. Anything else? I just tried to ran through that quick. I know we're late.
Question, how do you value timeouts versus possessions? I mean, for us, we don't, like today we played in a tournament, we get 3 timeouts a game. I see kids or coaches try to call timeouts early in a game when it's going to be a tie-up, or I think a timeout's a whole lot more valuable than one possession early in the game.
Yeah, you have to manage the game. That's a good question. You have to manage the game. I will go, like when we have a really good JV guy, he's a sophomore. On Saturday morning we had a game. I was going to be losing by 6 for the entire length of the game until the start of the 4th quarter because I had a guy in foul trouble. So I didn't really care I can't win the game in the 3rd quarter, so I just managed it. I'm not going to call timeout until I see a reason to. I used to study Phil Jackson every game, other than watching Jordan obviously score, but I watched how he ran timeouts. I watched how every time they did those look-ins, and you can hear guys talk, I Googled everything he's ever talked about with timeouts. But it goes back to who you're playing, what your team is like, and you're managing it. In other words, you can't win the game in the 2nd quarter. You can do a lot more to lose it by letting a team go on a huge run and digging yourself a huge hole. Like this year's varsity team, I would probably use a lot more timeouts early because we tend to, if we go bad fast and quick for a while. Whereas if it was an older team like last year's team, we had more veteran guys, I would look around and be kind of like, all right, they're on a run. Guys, remember Phil Jackson, he never called a timeout when the other team was on a run. He was so quote-unquote arrogant in a good way that he was like, that's great, guys. I have Michael Jordan. I have Scottie Pippen. You go on your little 8-0 run. Everybody scream and cheer. Those guys are very comfortable with what they have going on the floor. So if you have players who are really good at keeping their composure and being playmakers, I would hold on to them. And then you guys, as the more you've coached, you guys have probably seen the same teams, the same coaches several times. I can tell you Coach Nazis was at Wheaton North, now he's at Batavia. Every time he calls a timeout, he's going to run a post play for a post player. He does it every time. He'll do it for the next 20 years, too. So you coaches have tendencies. One thing I will tell you that I think is very effective is call a timeout after you go on a run, and the other guy calls a timeout because you know he's calling a timeout because of your press. Come out in the zone. One possession. Come out in a different type of a press. Whatever he just used his timeout for, that's what he's using his timeout to adjust to what you're doing. So change it. And sometimes guys say that. Sometimes I'm just in la-la land myself, and I don't do it. I'm just like a kid. Sometimes you're doing really well with adjustments, and sometimes you're just kind of you're half into it mentally sometimes. Anything else?
That was a good point. I would say that was a great game. It was our coach wanting this time out. The other coach called the time out.
Right, and then into that, we played a team where we don't have we have athletes, we don't have